Well, it is Thursday, and that means Dr. E. Christian Kopff, University of Colorado in Boulder, smarter than the average guy. And we'll be talking about a wide range of topics today. Stay tuned.
Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Hi, we're 23 seconds into the program with Chris Kopff. And just before we went on the air, I said, Chris, I really don't have any topics this week. What do you think would be interesting? And he said, Time's a Person of the Year. Time magazine, which at one time, of course, was a big factor in America, no longer is. But still, people look to see who their Man of the Year or Person of the Year is going to be. I have no idea who that is, but Chris Kopff says he does. Who did they choose, Chris?
It's online, and the winner this year was the Bishop of Rome, Pope Francis.
All right. Pope Frank, as his friends call him.
And David Letterman likes to call him Frank, and that's good. It's Francisco or whatever. But they did list they had earlier released the top 10, which included people like Miley Cyrus and Miss Sebelius. But they also listed the top 5 in order of the vote, and Edward Snowden was just beaten out by Pope Francis. So those were the top 2 people they were considering.
Okay, now this doesn't mean these are the people they admire the most. They just say these are the most
people who are most influential
in the news. Yeah.
In the news this year, who had the biggest impact.
Who makes that choice, by the way?
They are the staff of Time magazine vote on it. They have a group of people. So it isn't just in the old days. One had the feeling it was Henry Luce back in the 30s and 40s. He would walk in and say, "This is the guy who's going to do it."
I'm sure that was true. Yeah.
But I'm sure it was. I mean, he paid for it. It was his, magazine. You do what he told you to do, including write in the style that he gave you. He used a very distinctive Time style that was not like anybody else. And now they have a staff. They investigate. They write up dossiers. They submit it to their editorial staff, and there's a vote. So it is actually a vote, though a vote of people who work for Time magazine.
Did they say why they chose Pope Francis?
Because he's the people's pope, and he's going to change the Catholic Church, and he's going to turn away from an obsession with theology and thinking and get back to doing things. And he's a guy who walks around and greets people, at least when he was bishop back in Buenos Aires, and he would go to the poor sections, and he calls up people on the telephone and tells them he's praying for them. And he's made society's most vulnerable the focus of his ministry, the sick, the elderly, immigrants, and children. I forgot to mention atheists, so they mention later elsewhere atheists. So he is a doer pope, not a intellectual, they say, and he's going to put the church back on the road to being about caring for the poor and not having, theological arguments.
Heifer dust. I love that term, heifer dust. That's when they're being polite.
The way through the article, you will see they say he's not going to change the church's position on abortion because it isn't his to change.
Oh, they do say that.
But they have to read the whole thing. The first thing I do is skim it.
Yeah.
But then I printed the thing out so I'd have time to, this is what we all do despite it's all online, print it out. And when you finally get to, as it prints out of my computer, about page 4, suddenly we have all this admission that there is point after point, like, how about this quote? While still in his home country, the future pope also said, priestly celibacy is a recent development. It dates to about the year 1000 and has seemed open to change. And so this bothered people. But then when he, trying to find the thing which was really good, which is, is he going to change it? The answer is no.
No.
No. And he has said historically correct things. Again, it gives you a vision of the range. And this is one thing they're very good at, by the way, is saying he's not just taking over a rowboat, he's going to row in a different direction. He's in charge of a 2,000-year-old institution that has traditions and ways of doing things and commitments. And he mentions one of the basic commitments of the of the Catholic clergy as relatively recent, meaning it's only 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
It's not 2,000 years old. And you're going, holy moly, for most of us, something is 20 years old. I see this at my school, and they say, this is a tradition, and I've been here long enough to remember. No, I remember when that was put in. I don't consider that a tradition. I consider that a policy. Once you get to be 1,000 years old, it starts looking like a tradition.
Yes. He's not going to change that. I have a friend at the university level nearby who assures me in emails that Pope's going to legitimize the pill, which he will not do. He's going to legitimize, this came from another source, homosexuality, which he's not going to do. I mean, he's only the Pope. Of course, I'm a Catholic, as you know. I'm always amazed by what some people think a Pope can do. He is only the Pope. He's only there for emergencies. When there's I'm giving a speech now, forgive me. He's only there when there's a doctrinal dispute. He's the final judge. And that's the way it's been for 2,000 years. He doesn't create it, he just decides it. And no Pope is there very long, you know.
Well, once you're talking about a 2,000-year-old institution, even if you're there for 30 years, it's a small amount.
That's
and
right.
most of them are there 5 or 6 years.
That's right. That's about the average range.
He's old, after all. They didn't choose another young guy, as they did with John Paul II.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure exactly how old he is, but he's old.
I think he was 58 when he was elected, yeah.
Right.
This guy was 76, yeah.
He could still ski. It drove the communists crazy in Italy, because I was in Italy when he was chosen. In fact, I was in St. Peter's Square when he was announced. And the thing was, he was still old enough to exercise, to ski. It drove the communists crazy that they was a pope who wasn't, a sick old man. He was a tremendously lively, dynamic force. Now, he lived a long time, and he was very ill at the end, as everybody knows, but when he first took over, he was a dynamic, very strong man. Now, this Pope also is in good health, but he is an old man. Mm-hmm. He's in his 70s.
Late 70s, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Time Magazine says the papacy can turn a septuagenarian into a superstar.
Gee. Right.
Which it sort of has in this case, because there's no question in Italy, I don't know about elsewhere, but in Italy, a lot more people are going to church. A lot of people show up for the Wednesday, public meetings. They're having them in the square when the weather's good and the square is full. So that's great. But, of course, that's a relatively superficial thing. It's true of most new popes.
Exactly, yeah. A new pope always gets... Benedict got bigger crowds than John Paul II, and John Paul II got bigger crowds than Paul VI. And,
yeah, exactly. So here's Time Magazine. Francis signals great change while giving the same answers to the uncomfortable questions.
Yeah.
Well, see, so on the question of female priests, here's the quote I was looking for. I found the wrong one. He says, quotes, "We need to work harder to develop a profound theology of the woman," end quotes. That means no. Now, that's a very good Time Magazine statement.
Yeah. Well, here's the one that I was saying heifer dust about.
Right, tell me.
The church is going to start taking care of the poor. What do they think the church has been doing for 2,000 years?
Yeah.
How many hospitals were there before the church came into being? I don't know.
That's one of the things we noticed in 4th century A.D., the time of Constantine. Once the church is legalized, all of a sudden these things they're doing for the in-group, because they were illegal, now they're doing for everybody.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it all this. And this is one of the things where, how can you be opposed to abortion if you don't have orphanages? Well, guess what? There are orphanages.
Well, this government we have now is shutting down orphanages, Catholic orphanages.
Well, this is exactly right. This is really a real... I mean, if Julian the Apostate had seen how clever Barack Obama was, he would have seen that, Julian the Apostate, who was the last pagan Roman emperor, said, we're losing because the Christians are obviously not, whatever crazy stuff they believe, they are doing all these great things. And Obama sees quite clearly that if he allows the church to exist, all the good things it does will cause people to support it. even those who don't understand its theology and what it thinks. And because there were so many positive results of Christianity existing in your society. And so eliminating the Catholic and other Christian, there are Lutheran, there are Adventist, on and on, hospitals and orphanages and all the other things that allow our society to succeed because we have so many non-governmental ways of handling our problems. Yeah. That has to be eliminated so that only the government is left.
Yeah. Well, Obama will not be the last, and he's certainly not the first guy to try to disrupt or destroy the church. We'll be back in just a moment with some talk about Edward Snowden, who apparently was the runner-up for Time's Person of the Year. So stay tuned.
When choosing meat for your holiday table, why not choose the best meat you've ever tasted? They come from Wilson Beef Farms, of course. Let's start with steaks, dry-aged to perfection for superior natural tenderness and taste. Beef rump, tip, and top roasts are available in all sizes from Wilson. They'll help you create lasting memories of delicious holiday meals. And like all of the beef at Wilson Beef Farms, they're finished and aged the old-fashioned way without the use of chemicals or hormones. If you have a taste for pork, Wilson's has the finest boneless center-cut loins or bone-in loins, and if you're looking for the ultimate holiday ham for your table, well, Wilson Beef Farms has them straight from their own smokehouse with no water added and superior old-fashioned flavor. Call 545-8308 now to order your ham for Christmas while they're still available. Whatever your preference in meats, Wilson Beef Farms, Hess Road, Cancerega, offers you taste perfection guaranteed because they take pride in presenting only the very best meats for your table. It's all they do, and they do it well.
It's the Newsmaker Show on AM 1480 WLEA.
Oh, we're back on the air? Now, let me clear my throat. Chris and I were just chit-chatting there while you heard those messages. Chris Kopff, University of Colorado, we're talking about the Person of the Year. It's Pope Francis. But the runner-up was a guy that I think in the United States, maybe throughout the whole world, shook things up tremendously, and he's going to continue to shake things up. Edward Snowden. All right, talk to me about that, Chris.
Well, that's really interesting because Snowden was absolutely neck and neck with the Pope for being the man who was the Person of the Year, and it's obvious why. He has made us talk about important themes in our government, how much our government is doing, how much it spies on us, how much power it's taken over. And it's interesting because when many of the people who attack him, when I see them, they say, well, all this was really known, meaning there were people reporting on this and talking about it, except no one was listening. It wasn't getting any mainstream attention. And Snowden has, by the way he did what he did, it meant giving up his career, it meant giving up his country, tremendous sacrifices, has gotten us aware of the fact that the government is massively spying on us, that, as I always say this, the beginning of Person of Interest, you are being watched. And everyone is now aware of this. This is a key part. It's not the only part, because Obamacare is important, in the drop in the president's popularity. His young people are I see this on college campuses, are very aware that this government is spying on people and that it claims it's doing it only to protect us. But, it has information it shouldn't have and is going to find it very hard not to use.
You betcha.
But it's in trouble.
Listen, I'm not going to go so far as to say that Snowden is a hero, but I'm glad he happened because I think, as you say, if he hadn't spilled the beans, the average guy in the street would not know about it. The government would know, and a few of the inside reporters might know, but the government has gone wacko with its technological spying on us, Americans.
Yep.
And I don't care what Peter King says, that, it's all in the national interest. Well, Peter, you got to look ahead a year or two, and as Bob Heinemann said last week, and I hate to be political, but he said, do you really want Bill and Hill back in the White House with access to this information? No, you don't. No. If you've got any moxie, you don't.
He stated very well.
Yeah.
Congressman Sensenbrenner, who was the conservative who pushed the Patriot Act, is now calling the NSA a rogue agency.
That's right.
I mean, that's a very strong statement, but it's absolutely justified by the evidence.
Absolutely. And we have Bush to thank for the Patriot Act And we have Obama and the present people in the government to thank for the fact that it's just gone wild, and it's way past anything that we need for our security.
The wacko conservatives and the wacko libertarians all said when Patriot Act got through, this can be misused.
Absolutely.
And, of course, it didn't take that long for it to be misused. It's one thing when something's misused 60 years later and you say, well, anything's bound to... No, this happened almost right away. We find that what happens in the Patriot Act has been misused as soon as there was another president. Well, that's as soon as it can happen. Mm-hmm. And it was all set up, and this is one reason why Sensenbrenner is so upset, because he persuaded a lot of his conservative colleagues in the House to vote for it, because it was patriotic, and it was called the Patriot Act, and that's its name, isn't it? And, of course, now he's walking around saying this is not what was intended, and the question is, but it was what was likely.
Yeah.
Of course, good people said, I won't misuse this. But there are things where, of course, any good thing can be misused somehow. But this was likely to be misused in the way that Obama and his crowd at the NSA and the IRS have been misusing it.
Now, let me back up and say why Bob Heinemann, who will be tomorrow's guest, God willing, why he doesn't want the Clintons to have this information. You've got to remember back to when the Clintons asked to borrow the FBI files.
Right.
And then they disappeared. Well, what happened to... Well, we can't... I don't know. We must have misplaced... Oh, look! A year later, there they are on the table in the White... Oh, my gosh, how did we miss... Come on.
The last place you look.
Yeah. Oh, give me a break. So, and it doesn't have to be a Democrat, it can be a Republican. I mean, you don't want the government any more powerful than it is. And I'm very happy to hear that the kids in college are up on this, because they are more aware than the average adult of the dangers of technology. What else is going on politically that's kind of funny?
Well, the thing that I love that even the New York Times has noticed is, what are you going to do when Obamacare is such a disaster and the NSA revelations are embarrassing and your party is being blamed for it, as Democrats found? Well, the Democratic incumbent in the Senate in Arkansas, Mark Pryor, found a great idea. He released a TV commercial which says nothing about any of these affairs, but has him reading the Bible and explaining that he loves the Bible and the Bible is what guides everything he does.
Right to abortion and,
it's my compass and my North Star. Yes, exactly. Where's the part in the Bible?
Right to contraception and abortion.
Where's Obamacare in the Bible? Where's the NSA spying in the Bible?
Oh,
right?
Yeah, it's all right there, yeah. Well, I mean, they did send those guys into, what was it, Jericho? They sent the guys in?
They did. They did indeed.
Yeah, and they had the spies. I suppose he could justify. Oh, give me a break.
Something is always good. Yes.
Aren't these the same people last year that threw God out of the party?
Yes.
Huh?
Exactly. They booed
by voice
God
vote. By voice vote. Get him out of here. Yeah.
They booed God. I mean, that was one of the high points of that convention, which, by the way, had one high point after another. The Republican convention was very boring. The Democratic convention was not boring. Yeah. But booing God was, for me, the high point.
Yeah, that was something you're not going to forget. Yeah, they booed God. Yeah.
When they're running for office in Arkansas, they're reading the Bible. Let's not think about irritating things like Obamacare.
Well, you may remember what Bill Clinton did when he was defeated. I forgot which job he had. Was it governor? He got defeated.
It was governor. Yeah, it was governor.
Yeah. You know what he did, don't you? He joined the choir. Huh?
Really?
Oh, yeah. He joined the choir of the one church in Little Rock that had broadcast its services over the entire state. And every time you watch that service on Sunday morning, who is up there in the choir singing but good old Bill Clinton? Right. Jeez, give me a break.
He's wonderful. You got to admire his chutzpah, right?
Yeah.
The problem is we don't want to give that chutzpah all the information the NSA has gathered. That's all.
Chris Kopff, thanks for lightening our day and enlightening us in the process. It's always a pleasure talking with you. Stay on the line a moment. Now stay tuned for more news and information. Heinemann's here tomorrow to defend the indefensible, and we hope you'll join us then. You'll join us then.